areas for proper service delivery, and that generally forms the basis of our discussion tonight. And joining me is our seasoned political commentator, Kennedy Sankara. Thank you so much, Sankara, for dedicating your time for this discussion. And of course, now let us just get the ball rolling. Now, we have seen the vetting process of this nominated CSS getting to the second day. So what do you really compare probably with what we saw yesterday, and what should Kenyans really be waiting for in the forthcoming days? Because there have been concerns that have been raised by citizens that the chairman of this committee, that is the Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Wetangula, is so lenient on these candidates.
Well, the entire process of vetting cabinet nominees is actually a constitutional expectation that must be exercised or executed in a manner that is consistent with the Constitution. Mm-hmm. And when we talk about the provisions of Chapter 6, Leadership and Integrity, maybe most of us may be saying Leadership and Integrity, Chapter 6, and principles under Article 10, which we may not be aware. The authority given to a state officer is a donated public trust that must be exercised in a manner that is consistent with the Constitution. Number one, it must demonstrate respect for the people of Kenya. It must also build the public trust and confidence in the integrity of those institutions. It must also be consistent with the object and purpose of the Constitution. The process must also solidify the dignity to our nation. Mm-hmm. Then the question begging is, with the vetting process that has so far been recorded, mm-hmm. has respect been demonstrated for the people of Kenya? Mm-hmm. No. As the institution solidified the integrity of its integrity while executing or performing public mandate, a lot of question marks are being raised. Mm-hmm. So, to myself and in my personal observation, some of the cabinet nominees should have been struck off from the word go, because they are failing to meet basic constitutional principles. Mm-hmm. The leadership and integrity, it's a very brief part of the Constitution, and it's very straight to the point. Mm-hmm. You look at the recent, like yesterday, when the big fish were being vetted, most of Kenyans were surprised. The Asla government, the billionaires has built an Asla government. Mm-hmm. It is so ironical, and the people of Kenya who voted the Asla nation government are now asking themselves several questions that even not the Aslas themselves can answer. Then who is the real Asla?
Absolutely, because actually yesterday the conversation that was really heated in the online media station was, Kenyans asking that if this government, we voted in the Hustler government, and is it really the Hustler government as we had anticipated, or because we are seeing no Mamamboga else anywhere in this in this vetting process, and of course probably when they were declaring their wealth, no one was coming with anything less than 100 million. That is yesterday. It's only today that we saw, of course, Aisha Jumwa declaring that her wealth is only at 100 million shillings. So does this probably paint a different picture of the Hustler government to the Kenyans on what they had anticipated before the voting process?
Well, the guiding principles of leadership is selection based on personal integrity, confidence. I mean, that personal integrity, that suitability to hold that office, those are one of the key issues that must be considered without having political soft spot or the process being influenced by any other means available. Now, considering what has happened and the leniency on the side of the speaker, and maybe before I dilute and go back to what you've just asked me, the point I'm trying to bring out actually also justifies what I'm saying, is that the selection process under the guiding principle of leadership is that it is based on my individual capability, my individual suitability, my competence, and not influenced by any other form or means that contravenes the basic provisions of the Constitution on matters integrity.
Mm-hmm.
These people have told us that they are hustlers and ordinary people.
Mm-hmm.
The sources or the kind of business they are, pronouncing before the committee does not relate in one way or the other with what an hustler form of work demonstrate.
Right.
Definitely that cuts out or reduces our confidence in what they believe.
Mm-hmm.
The Constitution has been violated ab initio by people coming to lie in the public domain.
Right.
If some quoted 500 million, if others quoted 3 billion, I am rest assured that they are more than that. That is the only thing they could lie with in the public domain. And that definitely exposes the selfish character of Kenyan politicians. These are billionaires, these are millionaires, employing poor people who are working under hand-to-mouth economy. Yet these are billionaires. You look at some of the people who surround them as loyalists. They are seriously struggling while the billionaires are calling themselves hustlers. That is politics of conmanship, politics of deceit.
All right, really, really interesting on that point, how you bring it out clearly. And now you've really, aired this concern that the kind of, when these leaders are told to explain the sources of their wealth, it is not coming out clearly. And of course, probably on the integrity, basing this on the Chapter 6 of the Constitution on leadership and integrity. There are some leaders, of course, who have been, allegations have been made against them concerning previously how they have served in previous government dockets, issues of maybe squandering public finances. So do you think probably with these issues that have been raised, the questions that have been raised, do we see chances or possibilities of some of these nominees being stricken off and probably not passing this vetting process?
Well, if Parliament is an institution of integrity, then it is not the question of how or it's just the question of when. They must, in fact, they should not be struck off. They must be struck off. Let me take, for example, I want to be very categorical in my talks. Someone like the cabinet nominee for public service, Honorable Aisha Jumwa. Aisha Jumwa's certificate of good conduct indicates that she has a murder case. How does this character qualify to be a CS under working constitution? That is no. In fact, the honorable thing that the Honorable Aisha Jumwa should do is to, pull herself away from the public debate on the nominee, wait for the court processes to finalize. If it is her thing, she will just get it. But
you see, Aisha Jumwa has defended herself, saying that she's constitutionally she's supposed to be innocent until proven guilty in the court of law.
The question I'm bringing is, we are strictly adhering with provisions of leadership and integrity.
Yes.
I bring a certificate of good conduct and it indicates that Sankara has a murder charge that is still active in court. The same me, now this case, we look at the duration it has taken to be heard and determined, quite long. Now the prime suspect is now applying to DPP to become a state witness.
Right.
Whose son is this being used as a sacrificial lamb? This is the question we must ask without any fear or favor. Someone like David Chichir, he has been accused of some amount of money squandered during his tenure. He is not coming out clearly to defend whether it was a mere political propaganda or it is a matter of substance. Such like characters to comply fully with provisions of leadership and integrity that reads bringing dignity to the nation. Bringing dignity to the nation means striking off Aisha Jumwa, pushing away Davis Chirchir. But again, another constitutional principle is being being disregarded, and that is awarding these positions not based on competency, suitability, and integrity, but based on political affiliation. Some of the members in the committee are barely asking 0 questions while they are paid and they take taxpayers' money based on competence to sit in those committees to ask the questions that myself, Sankara here, cannot ask in those committee sessions.
Really interesting. Really interesting, of course, the issue that are bringing out on members that are in this committee, the nature of questions.
They are taking tea. They are there to take allowances.
The nature of questions, of course, that they are asking. Do you think probably with this trend, if it continues, seeing from what we saw yesterday and what we saw today during this vetting process, do we have a possibility of probably this committee finding someone incompetent so far among for the 22 cabinet secretary positions that have been nominated so far?
In their eye, incompetency is relative. What we understand, we may be understanding out here may be different from what they're understanding. But before I mean several words, let me say this. With the cabinet nominees fronted by the president to the parliament, red flags should be raised everywhere in Kenya, along the public roads. We are headed in a very dangerous scenario where almost 50 plus 1% of cabinet nominees have questionable integrity, not from murder, not from heinous economic crimes. Where we headed is that what message is the president sending to the people of Kenya that, oh, look, you're on your own. Every man for himself, God for us all. He has exposed us to hyenas. And I'm actually saying this passionately. The president has exposed the people of Kenya to hyenas. You cannot do we have insufficiency of people to be appointed to those offices? We are 50 plus million Kenyans.
Maybe Sankara, let us go slow on what the president was saying, and the deputy president, of course, they have also been saying that Kenyans need to give them time to deliver on their mandate. Maybe let us get into this perspective. I want to get to your perspective on this the National Treasury and Planning nominee, that is Professor Njuguna Ndung'u, who was cornered today between the rocks to answer questions about the collapse of the banks when he served as the CBK governor. And a lot of questions, of course, that were being asked, where Junaid Mohammed, who is on the Azimio side, was asking that when he served as the CBK governor, there were in 2011, the parliament investigated that there were collusions. There were collusions between the governor, that is Njuguna Ndung'u, with the commercial banks in a speculation, or rather in a plan to weaken the Kenyan shilling, which really saw the Kenyan shilling really go weak against the US dollar. So these are not just speculations. They are things that are coming out with facts. So what does this really mean to this ailing economy if you are having such a person which is passed as the CBK governor? Questions were raised that they made plans, conspiracy to weaken the Kenyan shilling. So what is the future if we're having such a person at the helm of this prime docket?
I have said, and I'll repeat. Kenneth, let us replace or erect red flags next to our Kenyan flags. We are in a very dangerous situation. Where on earth, as someone who has served at the prime position of a CBK governor, being given a cabinet nominee for finance and treasury, while there are sufficient evidence, because the parliament investigated, if I got you right.
Right.
They did not speculate. They investigated, and a report is in the public domain under the parliamentary chambers. Where does the president get the unique sanitizer to bring this person? This is smuggling a corrupt person to the public office through the back door. The parliament must stand firm to reject such like nominees. I am not speaking based on political interest, but I'm speaking for the people of Kenya, because we understand the value of that shilling versus the dollar and what that really implies to the common person, the hustlers that is different from the billionaire hustlers who formed the government by duping the people of Kenya that indeed they are hustlers. Hustlers are not even worth 500 shillings. Hustlers are worth 50, 100 bob. Hand-to-mouth economy. The hustlers they are calling are people with billions, people with millions. This is conmanship. Before I forget, you are asking me that now that these people, we should not be go hard on the president and the DP and give them time to deliver. You
yes.
cannot get it right when you start it. You set it off the wrong way.
Right.
You cannot do the right thing, achieve the right objective by institutionalizing a wrong person to do the right thing. It's like taking a farmer to go and extract my tooth in the dental hospital. In as much as I appreciate the actual value of a farmer, the farmer do not fit in an hospital corridor. Neither do a doctor fit in a farming ground. So people must be allowed to do what they actually able to do, and that's why the leadership and integrity under Article 72 subsection B of the 2010 Constitution speaks of selection being based on personal integrity, suitability, and competency. How is a competent person competent? Is not a competent person is not someone who has been found incompetent, sanitized to be brought back to become competent.
Interesting.
To please a political formation. We are not in Asla nation to stay. We had Jubilee era, we had Moi and Kanu era, we had Kibaki era. These things come and go, but the country stays, the shilling stays.
Right.
We cannot bring a weakling link or a weak link to the shilling back to manage the shillings. That is a big no. And the people of Kenya must even move to court to stop the vetting of the CS Treasury, because his history speaks for himself.
Maybe let's wait to see what this able committee will come out with. Probably they will find weakness, of course, to probably tell the president to find another suitable person. So just in a minute, Sankara, I mean a minute. There have been, of course, questions raised on the political affiliations. These dockets being awarded in terms of political affiliations and probably technocrats. One person that has really been loud, in as much as probably his history might be having a smoke of a dark spot. This is Davis Chirchir in the docket of energy and petroleum. People have really lauded the plans that he has for this docket. Probably, what do you make of this selection process that was made by the president, rather, on the technocrats and political affiliations? Do you think the technocrats, who is taking an example of Chirchir, will probably deliver to the mandate of the dockets that being given? Just in a minute, kindly.
The president was battling between competency and loyalty. He chose to reward his loyalists with high demanding opportunities at the expense of technocrats. The president is struggling very hard to force Kenyans to accept these people as cabinet nominees, while he understands very well that their history do not allow them. How is a technocrat? A technocrat must not be a corrupt person who wants to serve a public interest office. That is a donated public trust that must be executed in a manner consistent with the primary objects and purpose of the Constitution. The Constitution do not abhor or adore corruption. Someone who has been accused of tainted hands must first seek for sanitizer, not through the back door by the power, the ruling government, but through the constitutionally recognized processes. The power denoted is not for them to rule us, but for them to deliver in a manner that is consistent with the same document I've been mentioning.
All right.
So it is not a matter of a technocrat. I would say, and this one I would say passionately, the president battled so much with the battle between awarding technocrats and rewarding loyalists. He chose this loyalist. That's why he settled for people like Aisha Jumwa, while he knew very well that Aisha Jumwa and Linturi had issues. Imagine.
No,
Sankara,
let me just cut you on that. Probably, maybe just for the interest of time. But we really hope that you might be having a dark past, and the Kenyans should not really base their judgment on this. Leaders probably on what past they had. Time and chance occurs to all, and probably another chance that has been given to them, they might be different. So